Bianca Michaela Landro, aka BIA, born August 16, 1991. Today's feature had a rise that carried the makings of a future star. The look, the confidence, the industry push, even a headline-grabbing feud with Cardi B. But when the debut finally landed, first week numbers exposed a gap between awareness and belief. People knew her, but too few were invested. In today's fast-moving rap lane, especially for females, that matters. At 34, without a distinct artistic identity and a debut that flopped, rebuilding momentum is possible, but the window to become next in line is closing rapidly. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music. Let's get it. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. BIA is a rapper from Medford, Massachusetts. She first emerged in the mid-2010s after being featured on the Oxygen reality series Sisterhood of Hip Hop, where her work ethic and stylistic confidence drew early industry attention. That led to a deal with Pharrell's I Am Other imprint under RCA, positioning her as a developing artist with strong mentorship behind her. While her early releases showed promise, it wasn't until years later that she found her first mainstream traction. Her breakout came with Whole Lotta Money in 2021, especially after the Nicki Minaj remix, which pushed her into national rotation and introduced her to a wider fan base. The momentum continued through collaborations with artists like Russ, J. Cole, and T-Pain, along with a consistent visual aesthetic rooted in luxury and cool confidence. Labels and media framed her as a potential rising star in the evolving female rap lane. All of this set the stage for her debut studio album, meant to be the moment that finally solidified her spot. Stunt number 1, the debut didn't convert the buzz. When an artist is positioned as the next rising star, the debut album becomes the moment where perception is tested. The groundwork leading up to it matters. The viral moments, the cosigns, the interviews, the features, the aesthetic, the talk around your name. BIA had all of that. After Whole Lotta Money and its remix placed her in the national conversation, she entered a space where listeners were aware of who she was, and labels treated her like someone on the verge of a larger breakthrough. For an artist, that's a rare position to be in, but awareness alone doesn't equal support. When her debut studio album finally released, the numbers reveal the truth. Reports place first week sales around 8,000 units, with some outlets suggesting numbers even lower. Whichever you lean toward, the takeaway is the same. The audience didn't show up at the level her visibility suggested they would. And in the current music climate, especially in female rap where momentum shifts quickly, that matters. This wasn't a case of a project being ignored. People saw the release. It circulated online, was covered by major platforms, and had the visibility of a properly backed rollout. The issue wasn't exposure, it was conversion. The debut moment is where listeners reveal whether they feel connected to the artist behind the image. It's where branding, personality, and artistry are supposed to merge into something undeniable. For BIA, that connection hadn't been firmly established before the album arrived. She had a recognizable aesthetic, luxury forward, composed, visually polished, but what was the emotional or artistic distinction that separated her from the many artists occupying the same stylistic space? Listeners need a reason to choose someone. They need a sense of identity, voice, or narrative that feels exclusive to that artist alone. Her debut didn't provide that moment of clarity, and when the first impression doesn't land as intended, the climb that follows becomes far steeper. Stunt number 2, lack of distinction. In today's female rap landscape, success isn't just about being talented, stylish, or confident. The lane is crowded with artists who can rap well, look great on camera, and deliver the kind of luxury-forward imagery that performs well online. What separates those who stay from those who fade is distinction, a specific identity, message, tone, or emotional presence that audiences recognize immediately. And this is where BIA's momentum hit a ceiling. She had the look, she had the composure, she had the consistent aesthetic that felt polished and intentional. Her videos were high quality and her branding consistent. But when listeners tried to describe what made her unique, not just good, not just visually appealing, the answer was often unclear. Her style fit comfortably within the dominant sound of the era instead of reshaping it. This doesn't mean she lacked talent or effort. It means the core artistic identity that drives long-term loyalty wasn't fully defined. Fans support artists they feel they understand, artists who give them a perspective or experience they can't get anywhere else. Some do this through personality, some through vulnerability, others through vocal tone or storytelling. BIA's presentation stayed more aesthetic than personal, more composed than expressive, more curated than revealing. As a result, the bond with listeners remained shallow instead of deepening into something lasting. In a market driven heavily by personality and narrative, being liked is not the same as being chosen. Without a distinctive voice or connection attached to her music, she became easy to group alongside other artists with similar flows, visuals, and subject matter. When listeners can replace you with someone else without feeling a loss, the connection was never strong enough to withstand time or trends. This isn't a dismissal of her artistry, it's an acknowledgement of how crucial identity clarity is in a saturated lane. Without it, every new song risks becoming another moment that passes instead of one that builds. Stunt number 3, the window is getting smaller. In music, momentum doesn't just build careers, it shapes how the industry perceives an artist's potential going forward. And in the current female rap landscape, momentum moves fast. New artists appear constantly, often backed by strong promotional pushes, viral marketing, and social media engines designed to create immediate excitement. For someone like BIA, who reached her breakout moment later in her career, the timing adds another layer of difficulty. BIA is 34 years old. That isn't old, and it doesn't diminish her ability or professionalism. But in a space that heavily values youth-driven visibility, image evolution, and cultural trend shifting, age can affect how much time an artist realistically has to reinvent, expand, or reintroduce their narrative. Many of the artists she's now compared to had already developed a solid fan base earlier in their careers, giving them more room to experiment or rebuild if needed. BIA is still in the stage of defining that core foundation. Her brand has been built on today's aesthetic trends, but that kind of branding relies on forward momentum to maintain relevance. When the debut album didn't generate the level of response that would signal a rising star moment, the next phase becomes more challenging. The industry, especially the major label system, is always scanning for who's gaining traction the fastest, not who still could gain traction with more time. This doesn't mean BIA cannot continue releasing music, touring, collaborating, or retaining a loyal audience. She can, and she likely will. The question is whether she can realistically ascend into the tier of artists seen as leaders or defining figures in the genre. That pathway narrows when momentum slows and when newer artists are constantly introduced to fill the next up conversation. Rebuilding now requires something intentional, an artistic pivot, a clear identity, or a moment that connects emotionally in the way her debut didn't. It's possible, but the window for becoming the next major name in her lane is tighter than before. All in all, BIA's story isn't one of failure, but of timing, positioning, and the challenge of securing true connection in a crowded field. She had moments where it looked like everything was aligning: industry support, a breakout single, strong branding, and public visibility. But when it came time to convert recognition into lasting belief, the momentum didn't carry. Her debut album's reported first-week sales reflected a gap between how known she was and how invested listeners actually felt. In an era where new artists are constantly emerging and the audience quickly shifts to whoever feels most distinct, it becomes harder to hold space without a clear and memorable artistic identity. BIA still has talent, presence, and professionalism that keeps her career active. She can continue releasing music, touring, and finding her lane, but the conversation around her being, quote, next in line has likely passed. Her path from here depends on whether she can define something uniquely hers, something only she can offer. If that happens, there's still room to grow. But for these reasons, her career is being stunted. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.